All right, limited, we're Jair, Kenny Clark, Cooper, Ford, Jenkins, Morgan, Musgrave, Valentine, and Watson. And Devontae Wyatt did not participate.
Since Bill's not here, you said you felt like you had dodged a bullet with Watson last week. How good of a sign is it that he's already able to get back out there?
I think that's a great sign to have him out there. Certainly, we all know what he brings to our offense, to our football team, and we missed him last weekend. So we're really excited to get him back there, and hopefully he continue to progress throughout the course of the week, and we'll see where we're at on game day.
If Wyatt was bad enough, you guys would probably obviously put him on injured reserve. Are you hopeful that even if it's not this week, it's not too far away that he could be back?
Yeah, that's a hope. But today, I mean, obviously he was out of the boot, which is a great sign, and moving around. So we'll just continue to progress him through.
Jaden Reno obviously had a great year for you last year. His numbers even better this year. What's the difference you saw in his game coming into this season and what you've seen so far? Where has he grown the most?
I just think the work that he's put in, and it wasn't just while he was here, it was all the work that he did in the offseason getting ready for the season. I think he's got a great understanding of our offense and what we're trying to accomplish and how he just has learned all the little details in order for him to go out there and make those plays. And, you know, he's a legitimate weapon both in the pass game and in the run game. And then he brings an element of physicality and tenacity on the perimeter that I think all our receivers embody, quite frankly, and do a great job in the run game, just digging out safeties or blocking corners or cracking on linebackers, whatever we ask them to do, and they never flinch. And I don't think, just when you look around the league, I don't think you can say that about every group, but I think you can say that about our group.
Cardinals did a great job running the ball against the 49ers. What is it about their running attack that makes them difficult to contain with Murray?
Well, Connor is he's a beast. He's a big physical back that is more elusive than he leads on, just in terms of for a bigger guy. And then you got Kyler Murray, who's able to, whether it's a zone read that he takes to the house for 50 yards or whatever it was, or just trying to contain him in the passing game. I mean, you got to defend for a long time when he's got the ball in his hands, because he can throw within the timing of the play, or he can make it go off schedule. And I mean, we showed the guys a bunch of clips of him just making multiple defenders miss in the pocket, and his ability to create and extend and make those off schedule chunks down the field. He's extremely dangerous. I think he's probably playing as good as he's ever played. I think he really looks good. So it's going to be a great test for our defense.
How big of a challenge is Marvin Harrison, just with what he's put on film so far this year?
Tremendous challenge. You know, I think he's a long physical receiver that is capable of making great plays down the field. I think, you know, and he's what's scary is he's still learning the NFL game. So I think he's going to be a star in this league for a really long time.
Is it easier to convince a first-year guys, starting quarterback, to throw a bunch of checkdowns than it is a second-year quarterback who's had some success throwing the ball down the field? Would you like to see him hit more checkdowns than he has so far?
I'd like him to hit whatever the play calls for, whatever the defense calls for. And if that means to hit a check down, absolutely. I just want him to read each play as its own. And no matter what has happened before, either positively or negatively, take each play for its own entity. And, you know, that's how we're always going to coach a quarterback. And I do get that there's a time and a place where you might take a little bit more risk depending on certain situations. But I think for the most part, we just want them to read each play true. I think a lot of it, you know, when you might take a little bit more chances is if you're in a 2-minute situation and time is of the essence, where you might be a little bit more aggressive, trying to fit the ball into a tighter window potentially. But for the most part, we want them just to read everything true.
If you're getting a lot of two-shell looks, though, are you more likely to get open checkdowns than you would be in?
Well, yeah, traditionally, that's how it's most two safety defenses. It's a little bit harder to push the ball down the field. But that really hasn't been the case the last few weeks. I mean, we got almost predominantly, there were, I want to say about 10 stamps, so maybe two shell the last game. We're getting a lot of single high.
Would you say it was business as usual amongst the team with Romeo returning?
Yes.
Now that it's behind you, I wanted to know if you would tell us how difficult it was to make the decision to suspend him, because coaches don't want to suspend players. It's hard enough to get through a season.
Yeah, it's always, you never want to get to that point. And that's why I think, one thing that's so important for all of us involved is you got to communicate. And if there's an issue, you got to communicate so we can work it out together. And unfortunately, there's a level, there's a standard that you have to live by. And if you don't, there's going to be consequences. And I've made that very clear to our team. Like, there's a level of professionalism, but you know what? Each moment is a learning experience, and like I mentioned last week, it was a one-off, and we're moving forward.
How you reconcile that? Is that as important to you as a coach as any game planning that you would do as well as part of your leadership role?
Yeah, I think you always want the morale high in your building, and you want to make sure there's crystal clear lines of communication so that everybody's on the same page and that the expectations are the same both ways. And so that is always at the forefront of what we do, is just making sure that everybody's on the same page. And I mean, you're dealing with a lot of people, but this is a people business, and doesn't go just for our players. It goes for our staff and everybody involved.
So let's say I'm on your team and I'm unhappy with my role. What should I do?
You're asking me if you're, yeah, I think you have to have a conversation. There's usually a chain of command with that in terms of going to your position coach, addressing the issue. And I get it. I think one of the beauties of just all these athletes and all our players is they all have their own wants. But how does it fit within the confines of the team's wants? And ultimately, we're in the business of winning, and you got to wrap your own desires under that team first mentality. And I think football is the ultimate team sport. I've said it many times. It takes all 11. I think there's so many great examples of guys doing the little jobs to allow guys to go make plays. I think a great example this last game, I don't know if I said it the other day or not, was on X's interception. Kobe Wooden going in, picking the center, Carl Brooks wrapping around, Keyshawn Nixon playing great leverage on the receiver, kind of bumping him off his route a little bit, allowing X to go make the play, and then we got a bunch of guys blocking on that play. Nobody can make plays unless the guy next to him isn't doing their job.
I guess the reason I'm asking is, and again, I haven't played for you, but from my experience with you, it feels like you would listen to someone's concerns. You may not change your game,
Well, yeah.
do something differently, but you do seem like you're the kind of coach who would listen. Is that, you feel like that's true about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to be. I mean, you might not want to hear what I have to say, but I'll always have the conversation. And that's one thing, but it's hard. And I get that the scrutiny these guys are under. That's why I try not to read much, because we're all under it. And it's just, there's a lot of interest in the NFL, and everybody's interested in their own fantasy teams, and you get ridiculed when guys aren't getting the ball or whatever it may be, but that's part of it. But that's, there's a lot of beauty to it too, that there's so much interest in our game, and it's great to come out and be able to play on national TV and having a stadium packed with fans, and so there's a lot of great things that come with it. But I think ultimately, what people really remember is the teams that win, and we're trying to do things that are bigger than the individual success. It's all about the team, and when the team wins, I'm a firm believer that everybody will benefit from that.
Two more, please.
You've mentioned how communication's paramount. With Romeo coming back today, did he communicate anything to the team in a team setting?
I'm not going to get into any of that. We addressed it, and we're moving forward.
People business. What's your reaction to Robert Sala's situation as a friend?
Well, it's certainly disappointing. Robert, in my eyes, I think he's one of the best at what he does. And, it's disappointing. Obviously, me as his friend, I thought he's done a lot of good things there, and but it is what it is. But I do think, when you see this stuff go on and happen in our league, it's part of our business. But it certainly makes you appreciative of where you're at right now with the Green Bay Packers and just the kind of leadership that we have here. And, what an honor it is to work for this great organization where we've gone through some ups and downs at times, and they were so supportive. So it definitely makes you pause for a minute and think about that.
Speaking of being critiqued, we've obviously asked a lot of questions about the pass rush and how you got a guy like Kyler Murray. Is there some carryover from what the approach you guys took in the first 2 weeks to the way you would want to approach him, and maybe the pass rush won't look like the gangbusters that
You want me to tell you the game plan, Jason?
parallels there.
Well, you got to be smart. You got to be smart when you're going against a quarterback of this caliber in terms of he can make you look really silly really fast. And if you give him huge rush lanes, he's going to take advantage of it. And like I said, he can beat you with his legs. He can beat you with his arm. I think he's got a lot of talented players around him. I think they're really doing a nice job. So it's going to be a great test for our football team.